Hello everyone, I am Gurudutt, Assistant Professor in Indraprastha Law College. I'll be teaching you Law of Property and Easement. First of all, congratulations on passing the second semester examination and welcome to the third semester. In this video lecture, I'll be introducing you to this new subject. Let's have a look at the syllabus of this subject. In this subject, we'll be dealing with two different enactments. First is Transfer of Property Act and other is Indian Easement Act. So there are total of 9 chapters, out of which 8 chapters are concerned with Transfer of Property Act and 1 chapter is concerned with Indian Easement Act. You may just have just read the names of different chapters which you have to study. As far as books are concerned, 8 books have been suggested by the university, out of which Paras Diwan, according to me, is the best book. Even S.N. Shukla is a good book. You may decide which one do you want to purchase. You may purchase any of them. Alright, before going to the Indian Transfer Property Act, let's first understand the meaning of property in general. That what do we understand by the term property in general? What a layman understands by the term property. So in general, as far as a Cambridge dictionary is concerned, property is something, an object or objects that belong to someone. That's how we conceptualize property. If you say that this is my property, people understand that you have the right over that property. So you have right over that property. This right is the legal concept which is understood by everyone in general, by the general masses, even without knowing the legal aspect of that right. Second can be building or area of land or both together. That is also understood by the term property. The third is legal right to own and use something. That's also how you use the term property. Do not get confused with the meaning a quality or in a substance or material, like chemical property or something. That's also meaning of property, but as far as law is concerned, we will not be dealing with this meaning. Then the term property has been derived from the Latin term proprietat and the French equivalent term proprius, which means a thing owned or possessed. Property has been one of the most fascinating and confusing concept in legal theory. Many different philosophers, many different scholars have given their own interpretation of what is property and what should be property and how it should be controlled, how it should be transferred, who can owe property, who cannot have possession of a property, and all these things. This is a very vast area in jurisprudence. So it's not possible to study all the theories, but still we will be touching few important ones which are very common and popular. So even from the beginning of civilization, philosophers have given their views on the nature of property, but few theories have been given by important philosophers which we will study. One by the Hugo Grotius, other by the Samuel von Pufendorf, then by John Locke, and the fourth last is Marx's theory of property. So let's first understand what Hugo Grotius said. Now, as per as the Hugo Grotius was father of public international law. He is a very important philosopher. So, as far as Hugo Grotius is concerned, he thinks that property is something which even state cannot take away from you. So his theory of property, he says that property is something which an individual has a complete right over it, and even state cannot take away your property. And if it takes away your property, then state has to pay compensation to the individual from whom property is being taken. Then comes Samuel von Pufendorf. He thinks that property is founded in physical power manifested in seizing the object of the property plus sanction of the state. So as far as Samuel von Pufendorf is concerned, Nature of properties of is has two important elements. First, the physical ownership plus the sanction of the state. If you have both the things, then you have the legitimacy of the ownership of the property. Then comes the John Locke says that property is not just the physical holding over some object or a piece of land. It is also concerned with your own labor. If you produce something from your own labor, then that is also your property. And state does not have the power to take away that property from you. Then comes the Marxist theory of property. So, Marxist theory of property given by the Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, it says that the ultimate aim of the society is to abolish property. So, they are not in favor of personal holding of property or private holding of property. They say that ultimate aim is abolishing property, and they hold that property is nothing but a device in social warfare between the capitalist and the proletarian classes, the means by which capitalist expropriates or exploits the labor of the general classes. So, as per them, they are one capitalists are the holder of property, and they exploit the general masses through that property, or through the use of some kind of use of that property. Now, next we understand that what are kinds of property. There can be real property, personal property, tangible property, intangible property. So, real property is something which is actually present over some place, or you can see it, you can observe it. They are present in real world. Then comes personal property. In personal property, you have a private ownership over that property. For example, house. My house is my personal property. It is not a state property or public property. It is my personal property. Similarly, some properties can be public property, which might be owned by the community or the state. Then comes tangible property. Tangible property can be heard and felt, like car. If there's some car, you can touch it, you can feel it, you can hear it. You can see it. That is a tangible property. There can also be intangible property. Intangible property can be your right over some IPR product. If you have produced some IPR product, or you are singing some song, or you have some right in some, for example, interest. You have given some house on rent. Then your rent is your property. That is intangible property. You cannot feel or touch rent, but you can take rent. It is your property. It can be movable or immovable, both tangible and intangible. Similarly, there can be corporeal property or incorporeal property. Corporeal property is also called as domini corporis. It is right of ownership in material things. It can be seen or felt. Incorporeal property, it is also called as dominium juris. It cannot be seen or felt. It may be in jura realium. That is which one has in the property owned by another, or jura in re propria over immaterial things. That is subject matter of a right of properties, either a material or immaterial things recognized by law as property. For example, copyright over a book. You have a copyright over a book. That is your incorporeal right. Similarly, as I have already explained, rent, that is also incorporeal right. Then movable or immovable property, it is very easy to understand. Few properties are attached to earth and fixed, which cannot be moved, and therefore they are called immovable property, like our home, and others can be movable property, like our car. Now, broadly, there are two types of transfer of property. The first can be by operation of law. For example, if a father dies, then his property is transferred to his son or family, or a daughter or family. So this is by inheritance. This transfer of property is by inheritance. This is by operation of law. Similarly, when a company dissolves by insolvency, that company's properties may be devolved upon the shareholders. That is by insolvency. Similarly, by other way, by will or execution of decree, property may devolve. Now, other transfers can be voluntary transfer of property by act of parties. Now, this voluntary transfer is what the Transfer of Property Act is concerned with. It involves inter vivos transfer, like sale, mortgage, gift, exchange, or charge. Transfer of Property Act involves only this second category of transfer. We don't have anything to do with the first category. that is regulated by several other laws, for example, Hindu Succession Act and other laws. We have to concern ourselves only with this second type of voluntary transfer of property. Now let's have a brief overlook of the Transfer of Property Act. This act was passed by the British India during the British India in 1882. So it came into force on 1st July 1882. The main object of passing this act was to regulate the transfer of property between living persons. Because before this act there was no uniform law in the whole country which could regulate the transfer of property. So Britishers introduced their own English law in Indian subcontinent so that transfer of property could be made easily. Then secondly, they also wanted to complete the Contract Act, which was already passed in 1872. So this completed the Code of Contract Act of Immobile Property. This was also an object of passing this act. This act is not exhaustive in nature. That means that it is not a complete act. It provides certain laws, but it do not cover certain things which are covered by some different acts. Same. It is not a complete code. It is not exhaustive. It is not applicable to all types of transfer. Some transfers may also take place through Indian Contract Act 1872, through some intellectual property transfers, through registrations, etc. These are other things through which property can be transferred from one person to another, apart from Transfer Property Act. Thank you. In the next video lecture, we'll be starting with the section 1, 2, 3 and 4 of Transfer of Property Act, in which we'll study that first of all we'll study certain terms like what is certain terms like what is which objects can be transferred under TPA Act, what is standing timber and all those technical terms. Thank you.